There's an anahinga, Indian for snakebird. They swim underwater just like a fish. Before they can fly, they have to dry their wings out. So lots of times we'll see them with their wings spread. We call it the scarecrow pose. Oh my gosh, my parts are falling off. Holy cow. Hey, is there an engineer on board? Just a couple. But we're starting out here on Lake Osceola. We're going to go through 3 lakes via 2 old logging canals. All right, hold on. Let's go catch up to those guys. Here we go. Whee! All right. Yeah, don't jump. Break out the water skis. Yeah. So in Winter Park, lots of historic homes, parks, gardens, museums. This place on the right checks all of those boxes. It's the Alban Pelagic Sculpture Garden and Museum. There's more than 200 sculptures that are scattered throughout the grounds. Mr. Pelagic was a disabled immigrant. He had a very strong faith and a love of nature, so most of his sculptures reflect those 2 subjects, but it's also a premier spot for weddings, corporate functions, receptions, the larger ones done behind the museum, the smaller ones done behind the historic home on site here, the Capen House. The fun fact with the Capen House, this home was originally built on the other side of Lake Osceola, and in 2014, when it was in danger of being torn down, the community raised funds to move it from one side to its present location. I know. Now, how they did it, I like to tell folks the hardest way possible. They literally cut that house in half vertically. They used cranes and rollers to load it onto a barge that they assembled on the lake, and then they shipped it across the lake here half at a time. It took them a year to put it back together. The cost for the move and the renovation was right under $1 million. But that's the second house they moved. The other one was Casa Feliz. I'll show you that location and the original one to this when we come through the other side. It's actually on YouTube. There's a YouTube video of it coming across the lake. And if you look in the background, you'll see me on a paddleboard with a small group. I did paddleboard tours here for 16 years, had a little business over on Lake Killarney, so I was prowling around here with a group, and we saw that Capen House coming across the lake. I was like, what is going on in Winter Park? But that was 2014. Now, these are the old logging canals. Originally, they were creeks that were naturally occurring that connected all 6 lakes, but they were dug out by the lumber companies in the late 1800s to service a sawmill that was located on Virginia. They closed the sawmills in the 30s, and the canals have been used by us and by locals ever since. But look how pretty this is in here. Isn't this nice? This is where you guys go, ooh. Ooh. That's a lot of energy for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you guys could just tone it down a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
We can turn it up some room.
Oh, we turn it up. There we go. But real pretty, evergreen during the winter. You should see it during the spring and summer, though. All kinds of different stuff blooming. There's a bunch of bromeliads we just went by. These are shrimp plants, and there's a bunch of other stuff I don't even know the name of. But also in here is a bunch of Queen Anne's lace, that white flower that the florists use for their arrangements. So that's real pretty when that blooms. Okay, everybody over 5'5", if you could lower your head down as we go underneath this bridge. 5'3", 5'3", you're okay, just like me.
Right? Might knock some sense into me.
Oh man.
Gotta careful.
All right, that's That's the exciting part. So we're making our way through the Fern Canal on Virginia. The next lake is Rollins College, one of the oldest schools in Florida. Dinky Dock Park, which is where the sawmill was, and now it's public access. And our first stop will be the Genius Peninsula. It's got 4 large estates on it and another historic home as well. But right in front, looks like the sailing team is out here. That's going to make it interesting. Rollins, they've had a sailing team. Yeah, right. It's hard. I like the way you guys think. Now we're assigning value. I like it. But Rollins has had a sailing team since 1907. So that's a sport they take pretty seriously, along with crewing. The crew house is on Maitland, but the sailing dock is over here on Lake Virginia. Oh boy, yeah, they're out here.
Do we have alligators in the water?
Just that one.
Only one?
Yeah. No, there's no alligators. Most of them were removed. It's pretty rare to see one here. I think I've seen maybe 2 in my 20 years. Yeah. No guarantee. Let's jump out, go for a swim. No, you'll be fine. Yeah. Amber to the front. Yeah. This one is done by a new guy in Winter Park. Actually, a Winter Park local. His name is Z, or the name of his company is Z, and he did the boat dock to match that house. But that's pretty new. On the other side here, there's a canal that leads to Mizell. And on the back side of this peninsula is Lake Mizell. This first home is called the Martin House, built in 1925, originally as the Winter Park Businessmen's Club. Yeah, but after a few years, it was sold to Mr. Martin, and when he passed away, he left it for Rollins College, and it became known as the Martin Music Hall or the Martin Music Conservatory. This is my favorite part. For the next 20 years, if students didn't want to walk around from the main campus, the little Rollins Marina offered rowboats to the students, and you could row a boat to your music lesson at the Martin Hall. Now, sometime in the 70s, Rollins sold it. It's been in private ownership ever since, and about 6 years ago, they did a major renovation, adding the left and the right legs. The original house is just that piece in the middle. But my favorite part was what they did outside. They pulled up all the grass, they built berms, and they put down around 2,000 undergraduates and about 1,000 graduate students. If you see these people walking here, this is the old dinky rail line that came in to service the sawmill. When they closed the sawmill down, eventually the city pulled up the railroad tracks and they made a lakeside trail there. It goes underneath these bald cypress trees. You can see why they call them bald. They lose most of their foliage during the winter time. But on the other side, these newer buildings are student housing. With your room, board, and tuition, Rollins currently about $82,000 per year. I know. Primarily known as a liberal arts school, they do specialize in international business, and they have a master's program in the evening that's very popular. But this dock, as I mentioned, used by the water ski team and the sailing team. And although Rollins is very small in size, for water skiing they compete in Division I. All right, let me get by this boat here. So today they host regattas. Or in crew.
There we go.
Crew. Crew is another thing they take very seriously here. But in front of the boats is the Rollins Museum of Art. That building, the chapel, and the cafeteria are all open to the public. Let's get out of this guy's way. All right, here's my favorite spot, Tiki Dock. where the sawmill was located. When they closed it down, the Rotary Club of Winter Park bought the plant, converted it to a park, and then gave it back to the city. There's a fishing dock, a swimming area, and launches for motorized and non-motorized watercraft. Now, these lakes are spring-fed, so normally the water quality is amazing, but Winter Park, very proactive in their lake management. They test this water every Friday to make sure it's safe for people to swim in. And if it's not, they post it on those big green signs. Now, typically, the only time I've seen them close it is after hurricanes, when you get a ton of runoff into the lakes, and then the levels get skewed for a while. But Winter Park used to sponsor summer swimming sessions here up until maybe 15 years ago. So if you talk to anybody that grew up in Winter Park, a lot of them will tell you that they learned to swim at Dinky Dock Park. And there's never been a gator fatality or a gator incident on the Winter Park chain of lakes. And then this last building is the freshman dorm. There you go. Public dock. These are public waters. So if you have a paddle craft, there's no charge. If you have a boat with a motor, there's a small fee, like $5 to use the ramps. But there's 7 lakes in total, so you can go to all 7 once you put in here. This is the freshman dorm. They have a pretty fun little dock out back. On the Rollins map, it's listed as the study dock, which is, yes, very funny, because I literally have never, ever seen a book out there in my life. Which is even more ironic when I tell you that the beautiful home next door is the Rollins president's residence. So that's part of the package for the president, that beautiful home during their tenure at the school. Rollins just got a new president in July of last year. She came from Baylor University. No. Now, as you guys were looking, a lot of the architecture here, more the modern style, but on the next 2 lakes, I'm going to highlight maybe half a dozen homes that were built by Winter Park architect James Gamble Rogers. James built homes from the 20s through the 70s, more than 100 in total. But on the next 2 lakes is some of his finest work, so I'll highlight a few of those houses as we make our way across Osceola. All right, that was it for Lake Virginia, and we'll make our way back over to Lake Osceola. Dinky Dock, just...
So these boats here to your left belong to the residents in the...
Yeah, most of the condos on the lake will have a limited number of boat slips, and so that is the story here. Originally, these were apartments, but they were converted maybe 30 years ago. And although they look a little dated, they are highly valued for their position. From those upper floors, you can see both lakes, Osceola and Virginia. So when those become available, they're usually snatched up pretty quickly. This one is called the Rich Estate. This is a James Campbell Rogers original. He built this one in 1962. The Riches were looking to maximize their water view, so this location was selected because it's a little peninsula that juts out into Osceola, and their build style is called Bermuda. If you notice, most of the windows are extra large bay style. So what James was trying to do with his position and build is create a wraparound view of the lake. So no matter what room you were in the house, if you looked out the window, you would see water. Now, originally they were the only house here, and maybe 15 years ago, maybe 12, they sold off a big chunk, and now there's a sizable house behind them and all that foliage. But I remember you used to be able to look out the back of the Rich Estate, and you would see out onto what they call Gator Cove. So obviously not a 360 wraparound, but pretty close to a 260. That is the Rich Estate. right, the largest home in Winter Park. It took them 4 years to build this guy, but when they finished, 41,000 square feet. For reference, their neighbors are around 6,000, the white one and then the terracotta roof one. But if you haven't seen it already, they have some art installations in the backyard. And on the far left side, you can see the first one, the life-size statue of the elephant. Thank you. He's a little hard to see. Now, let me pull up. There's another one. Now, oh, you see the elephant? Okay, hold on. There's... I thought it was a Best Buy, but yeah, cameras. Right? Well, I got another one I want to show you. We got to pull up here a little. All right, you guys see the staircase? At the base of the staircase on the right side, there is a blackbird. Do you guys see that, the statue?
Yeah, we do.
That is an original by Fernando Botero. Okay, nobody from South America, obviously. He's a very, oh really? He's a very famous Colombian sculptor and artist. He's deceased, no longer with us, but that is an original piece by Fernando. So, cha-ching. Well, you're getting ahead of my game. Now, there is another art installation that involves water, and if you look through the trees, you can see the water flowing right here. But what you gotta see is where the water is coming from. Let me pull up here. It's not what you think, I promise you that. Oh, that's original. That's original anyway. But no. It is. It is a faucet. But like I said, it's an art installation. So it has a name. I know, right? So it has a name. It's actually called Money Down the Drain. That's a joke. All right, let me try again. These folks also have a statue in their backyard. This one is called Southern Assets. Okay, a little better reception on that one. Both of those were designed, these homes were designed by James Gamble Rogers. They call them the dueling Gambles because they bookend the Venetian Canal. They were both built in the early 50s. They're about the same footprint, but they're totally different styles. So they call them the dueling Gambles. But they bookend the Venetian Canal, which will take us to our third lake, Lake Maitland. But look how pretty this is right here. This is one of the iconic shots of Winter Park, coming into Venetian with the bridge back there and all the overhanging foliage. Our friends up here on the right, they've been working on a little project for a while, but they've been grafting orchids onto the side of their cypress trees. Now, some of them have integrated into the trunks, and some of them are still banded on. But there's a bunch of more up by the bridge that are actually blooming. But you can see them growing out of the tree trunks there. And then up here, they got a bunch more. They also grafted a small bear onto the tree as well. It seems okay, though. Bear in the air, you don't care. All right. We just stuck that like a champ. One of the few species that has the unique ability to grow on the land or in the water, but always surrounded by that above ground root system, the cypress trees. And this is the Rollins facility here, the crew house, also known as the Bradley Boat House. It's got a full gym upstairs, and then the bottom, the doors roll open and the students shoulder out those really long crew boats. This is Craft Azalea Gardens. You can see azaleas are starting to bloom. This little thing here is called an etc., which is Greek for six-column structure, or great place to take a picture. But we see a lot of fun stuff there, from weddings to proposals to impromptu photo shoots to professional photo shoots. But that's open to the public. There's no charge to use it. Look how pretty that is in there. There's some more. There's another. There's some azaleas blooming. Behind the trees is the Hotel Alabama, built in the early 1930s. They converted it to condos in 1977, but back in its heyday, this place was favored by the creative types. Actors, actresses, authors like Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, were all regulars at the Alabama. It was the place to be in the wintertime. Now, next to the Alabama, this might be one of the most striking homes and landscapes in Winter Park. This house is built in 1927, and it features this red barrel tile on all the exterior roofs. You see it on the pool house, boat house, guest house, and then it has that landscaping that's terraced like that. So, carriage house with a pool. Next to it, another Gamble Rogers house. This one built in 1934. Probably the neatest part of Winter Park is it's definitely not a cookie-cutter neighborhood. Every house unique and different than the one next to it. Oh yeah, check out the glass house over here.